Here's a step-by-step Lightroom editing guide to show you how I went from this to this just using global changes. So I started off cropping the image to how I liked it. Once this was done, I started making the changes. So to start off with, I increased the exposure ever so slightly. Next, I wanted to up the contrast because I felt like the photo was looking a little bit flat. I lowered the highlights to -100 to get this more in line with the rest of the photo. I then did the opposite for shadows and put this to +100. I was going to add some more of the blacks in later. Whites I ended up leaving as they were. For the blacks, I reduced this quite a lot to add some darkness to the background and also add a bit more contrast to the subject itself. At this point, I felt like the photo had a bit of a magenta tint, so I reduced this slider down slightly to combat this. And then I added a bit of vibrance and then lowered the saturation ever so slightly. For the effects options, you don't want to go too crazy with these because it can start to make it look a bit unrealistic, but some small changes here can look really nice. So I added small bits of texture, clarity, and dehaze. And then I added a small vignette to the image just to darken those areas around the edge. Again, you don't want to go too crazy with this. You can see here with the changes that I've made that there's now quite a lot of noise in the photo. So to help reduce this, I select the denoise option within Lightroom and let that run through. And once that's done, you can really see how clean the image now looks. The final thing I wanted to do was add a little bit of sharpening. I ended up putting the sharpening setting to 90. I left the radius as 1, and I put the detail to 40. And then if you hold Alt while moving the masking slider, you can see exactly what sharpness is going to be applied. So for this, I simply moved the slider until it was only the nuthatch and the tree stump that were included. And this is really useful because it stops unnecessary noise being added to the background of your photos. This was a bit of a different editing video for me because I normally use loads of masks, but I hope you enjoyed a slightly different insight into how I edit some of my photos.